Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. You guys sent in tons of articles about this Dia storm that just ripped through Spain,
Yeah,
and we're going to take a look at all those and try to figure out what's important, what are the insights,
yeah,
what should we be thinking about with this,
exactly.
and get ready for some shocking numbers about how many people have died,
Yeah,
and then the politics behind it.
absolutely. The death toll is really what's striking right off the bat, just the sheer scale of it.
Yeah,
In the province of Valencia alone, we're looking at least 51 deaths, and that's provisional. That's
wow,
just in that one province.
just in Valencia.
There's also been one reported fatality in Cuenca.
Oh wow.
And tragically, this number is expected to climb as rescue workers reach more areas.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. 51 people.
Yeah,
Are there any particular towns or regions that were, really hit hard?
absolutely. Torrent is one that's been mentioned a lot in these articles. Just the pictures are devastating.
Um, the the amount of rain that fell there in a very short period of time
Mm-hmm.
was just overwhelming. The drainage systems couldn't cope.
I mean, I've seen some of the pictures too, and
It's hard to even imagine.
yeah, it's like something out of a movie. It's unbelievable.
Streets turn into rivers.
Yeah.
Homes and businesses completely inundated. Roads are collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
The town's infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
is really severely compromised.
So it's not just like oh, there's a little bit of
Yeah,
flooding.
this is
This is bad.
this is major damage.
Wow. And are there other towns besides Torrent that were?
Yeah, there are a number of others that have also been hit very hard. Portachiva, Alpha Far Chest,
Oh, wow.
um, Alcudia Latour. The list goes on and on.
Wow. So like the whole region is really feeling the effects of this?
The entire region is paralyzed, actually.
Holy.
Transportation networks are down. Train services have been suspended.
Oh, wow.
The airport in Valencia has been disrupted.
Yeah.
Ports are closed. Bus services are not running.
So they can't get in, they can't get out. It's extremely difficult right now. Yeah.
One of the articles mentioned the Júcar River overflowing in Calera,
Oh, yeah.
and they had to rescue 26 people and 11 animals, like pets and stuff from there.
I mean, that's just incredible to think about, the power of that river overflowing,
Yeah.
forcing people from their homes and, I mean, rescuing animals too. That's just.
Those rescue workers must be working around the clock.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing incredible work. But, amidst all of this,
Yeah.
amidst all of this heroism and the tragedy, there's also a growing political tension.
Oh, really?
How so?
Yeah, the Valencian government is facing some pretty serious criticism.
What are they saying?
There are accusations that they simply weren't prepared for an event of this magnitude.
That's interesting because one of the articles mentioned that a tweet from the Partido Popular
Oh, yes, the peeps.
from about a year ago has resurfaced.
Right.
And in it, they were bragging about how they had gotten rid of the Valencian emergency unit.
I saw that tweet. It's certainly raising some eyebrows right now.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Critics are saying that disbanding this dedicated emergency response unit
Right.
has left the region vulnerable, and especially in the face of a crisis like this one.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty bad look for them in hindsight.
Yeah, I can see why people are bringing that up again.
Yeah, and Gabriel Rufián, the spokesperson for Esquerra Republicana, he was quoted as saying that there's a political responsibility for this tragedy.
Right, so it's not just a natural disaster, it's become a political one as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting how that plays out, for them. But yeah, right now we got to focus on the rescue and the relief efforts.
Absolutely. The immediate priority has to be saving lives and providing aid to those who have been affected.
Yeah. So what's being done? What's happening right now?
Well over 1,000 emergency personnel have been mobilized.
Wow.
And that includes everyone from firefighters and police to medical teams and even psychologists to provide support.
Wow, 1,000 people. That's incredible.
It's a massive effort, and they're working around the clock.
Yeah.
And the Consorcio de Compensación de Seguros, they've pledged to cover damages once assessments are possible.
Okay, so they're going to help people out financially too once they figure out what the total damage is.
Exactly. It's going to be a massive undertaking, though, considering how widespread the devastation is.
Yeah, that's true, and it's good that they're, already stepping up and saying, "We're going to help."
Yeah, absolutely.
Have there been any offers of support from outside the region?
Yes. Madrid has offered its emergency services.
Oh, that's great.
And the military has been deployed to assist with the rescue efforts.
Wow, so the whole country's really coming together.
It really is a national effort at this point.
Yeah.
They've also activated what they call the multiple victims procedure,
Okay.
and they're centralizing victim identification at the City of Justice in Valencia.
Wow. That sounds really intense.
Yeah, just highlights the scale of this tragedy.
Yeah.
The fact that they have to activate this procedure, that they have a specific procedure for this,
Right.
it just shows you how serious the situation is.
Yeah. And the fact that the CCS, this major financial institution, has already stepped up and said, we're going to cover those damages.
Right.
I mean, that also must indicate the scale.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to put an enormous strain on their resources.
Yeah, I bet.
And it might even lead to some broader discussions about,
Hmm.
how do organizations like this prepare for and handle the financial burden of these increasingly frequent
Right.
and severe weather events.
That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that, like the implications for...
Yeah, it's a whole other layer to this.
Yeah, yeah.
But for now, let's maybe delve into the specifics of the relief efforts.
Okay.
You've got over 1,000 people on the ground.
Yeah.
The logistics and the coordination must be just mind-boggling.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you mentioned the military's involved.
Yeah.
I mean, the military's usually called in when things are really bad. So let's start there. What are they doing?
Well, you're absolutely right. Their involvement really highlights how serious this is.
Right.
According to the articles I've read, they're primarily assisting with search and rescue,
Okay.
particularly in areas that are cut off by flooding and landslides.
Oh, so places that are really hard to get to.
Exactly. Places where helicopters are really the only way in or out right now.
So they're getting people out of there.
Yeah, they're evacuating stranded residents, transporting them to safety.
It's incredible to think about how many different groups are working together on this.
It really is.
You've got the military, you've got firefighters, police, medical teams.
And they're all working under incredibly stressful conditions.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It's not just the coordination. It's the sheer physical and emotional toll on these rescuers.
Yeah.
They're wading through floodwaters, clearing debris, putting their own lives at risk to save others.
That's heroic,
It really is.
what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you have the medical teams, tending to the injured, the psychologists offering support to, people who are just traumatized by this whole thing.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
The physical and emotional needs are immense.
Right.
And thankfully, organizations like the Red Cross are setting up shelters for people who've been displaced. They're providing food, water, other necessities.
Yeah.
But what's really heartwarming is that local communities are also stepping up.
Oh, that's wonderful.
People are opening up their homes, they're donating supplies, they're just offering any support they can.
Yeah, it's amazing.
A really powerful testament to human resilience and compassion, even in these really dark times.
Yeah, it is good to see that people are coming together and helping each other out like that.
Absolutely.
But looking ahead, how do you think this disaster is going to impact the political landscape?
That's a great question.
Especially with elections coming up, for the Valencian government.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
they're facing some pretty intense scrutiny right now.
Yeah.
Accusations of inadequate preparation,
Right.
especially after that PP tweet resurfaced.
Yeah, that tweet really has thrown a wrench in things.
Yeah, I mean, it creates this perception that they were ill-equipped to handle a disaster of this scale.
Right.
So it's a significant political challenge for them.
Yeah.
They need to demonstrate decisive action while also acknowledging any shortcomings
Right.
and outlining steps to prevent future tragedies.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of preventing future tragedies, one thing that struck me in some of these articles is that a lot of the hardest hit areas, they seem to be, places that were built on floodplains or that have really bad drainage systems.
Right. It kind of raises this question of,
Yeah.
have we been respecting nature's power?
Yeah.
We can't control nature.
Right.
We need to work with it.
Yeah.
And that might mean investing in things like green infrastructure, restoring wetlands, which act as natural sponges.
Yeah.
Implementing stricter building codes that take flood risks into account.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental shift in thinking that might be needed.
It seems like we can't keep paving everything over with concrete
Exactly.
and expecting it to just be okay.
Right. We need to find more sustainable approaches.
Yeah.
And it extends beyond just urban planning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we need to look at agricultural practices as well.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, intensive farming can actually worsen flooding.
Really?
Yeah, it compacts the soil
Okay.
and reduces its ability to absorb water.
Oh, so it's like everything's connected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how all these systems are interconnected.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a holistic approach, smarter urban planning, sustainable agriculture, and then, of course, the political will to actually implement these changes.
Absolutely. It's a multifaceted challenge.
Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit, I'm curious about the media's role in all this. Have you noticed any particular themes or narratives emerging from the articles you've read?
One thing that really stands out is the focus on the human cost of this disaster.
Yeah.
The articles we've looked at, they do a great job of highlighting the personal stories of those who have been impacted, giving a voice to the victims and their families.
Yeah.
And it creates empathy
Yeah.
and understanding,
Right.
which can hopefully lead to greater support for relief efforts and policy changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to remember those individual stories that, amidst all the bigger statistics.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in the numbers,
Right.
but every number represents a life.
Exactly. A family,
Yeah.
a community forever changed by this event.
Yeah.
And while the human element is crucial, there's also been a significant focus on the political fallout.
Right. I mean, that's unavoidable.
Yeah. I mean, the media is paying very close attention to the criticism of the Valencian government's response.
Especially with that PP tweet.
Especially with that tweet. Yeah, it's become a symbol of their perceived missteps.
Yeah.
And it raises this bigger question of accountability.
Right.
And the media plays a vital role in facilitating those discussions and holding those in power accountable.
Yeah. And we can't talk about this without talking about climate change.
Of course.
I mean, we're seeing more and more of these extreme weather events all over the world.
It's a trend that's impossible to ignore.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder, is this the new normal?
Well, there's no doubt that climate change is a contributing factor.
Yeah.
The scientific evidence is very clear that a warmer planet leads to more frequent and intense weather events.
Right.
And this DNA storm might just be a glimpse
Yeah.
into a future where these events become increasingly common.
That's a sobering thought.
It is?
But it's also a call to action.
Absolutely. We can't afford to be complacent.
Yeah.
We need to adapt our infrastructure, our policies, our entire way of thinking to this new reality. This event should be a wake-up call for all of us to take climate change seriously.
Yeah.
And work towards mitigating its impact.
Okay, so we've talked about the devastation. We've talked about the politics. Can you give us an update on the situation on the ground?
Sure.
What's the latest you've gathered from these articles?
Well, unfortunately, the death toll has continued to rise.
Oh, no.
The latest reports indicate at least 52 lives lost now.
Oh, wow.
And that number is expected to increase
Right.
as rescue workers reach more areas.
They're still searching.
They are.
Yeah.
The rescue and relief efforts continue with thousands working tirelessly to save lives and provide aid.
Wow, that's just heartbreaking. But it's inspiring to see, how dedicated they are.
Yeah.
The first responders, the aid organizations.
Their work is truly remarkable.
Yeah. What about the political side of things? Have things calmed down at all?
Not really. Tensions remain quite high.
Okay.
The Valencian government is facing ongoing criticism.
Yeah.
And opposition parties are demanding a thorough investigation.
Yeah. Into their preparedness and response.
Exactly.
Or it's not going to go away.
I don't think so. This tragedy has exposed some vulnerabilities that need to be addressed.
Right.
It's a critical opportunity for reflection and action.
I mean, beyond the human toll, the economic impact of this thing must be staggering.
Oh, absolutely.
The damage to homes, businesses, infrastructure.
It's hard to even fathom the cost of rebuilding at this point.
Yeah.
The agricultural sector has been hit especially hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Flooded farmland, destroyed crops.
Oh, wow.
And that's going to have a ripple effect impacting food prices, employment, overall economic activity.
So this isn't just a short-term problem.
No, this is going to be a long road to recovery,
Yeah.
a challenging journey.
Yeah.
But I do have faith in the resilience of the Spanish people. They will rebuild.
Yeah.
And they will emerge from this stronger than before.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartening to see the international community, rallying around Spain, offering condolences and support. Have you noticed any significant contributions or, expressions of support?
Oh, absolutely. There's been a tremendous outpouring of solidarity.
Yeah.
Several European Union member states have pledged financial aid
Okay.
and technical expertise for the recovery.
Yeah.
And humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross and Doctors Without Borders have also mobilized teams to provide medical care, shelter, essential services.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly these organizations can respond,
Yeah, it's incredible.
to disaster and provide a lifeline to those in need.
Absolutely.
We've talked about a lot of the negative impacts here,
Yeah.
but I'm also wondering about the impact on Spain's tourism industry.
Right.
I mean, those images of devastation, they're bound to have a negative effect, at least in the short term. What do you think about the longer-term outlook?
Well, it's true that the tourism industry will likely face some setbacks initially,
Right.
but I believe the long-term impact will be minimal. Spain is a resilient country
Yeah.
with a strong tourism infrastructure.
Yeah.
They'll bounce back.
Okay, that's good to hear.
The Spanish government is committed to rebuilding and restoring tourism infrastructure.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the enduring appeal of Spain itself.
Right.
Its rich history, its vibrant culture, its beautiful landscapes,
Yeah.
its delicious cuisine.
Yeah.
These attractions will continue to draw visitors.
Right, so it's not like Spain's going to just disappear off the map.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the enduring spirit of Spain.
Yeah. And speaking of spirit, it's remarkable how this disaster has also revealed the strength and resilience of the Spanish people.
Absolutely. Their ability to come together, to support each other, to rebuild. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and humanity prevail.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the immediate devastation to the political fallout, the economic impact, and the long road to recovery ahead.
It's been a lot to unpack.
It has. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you think is crucial for our listeners to understand about this event?
I think the most important takeaway is that this DNA storm is not an isolated incident.
Right.
It's a stark reminder of the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events due to climate change.
Yeah.
And we can't just react to these disasters after they happen.
Right.
We need to be proactive in mitigating the risks
Yeah.
and adapting to this new reality.
Yeah. It's a global issue. It requires a global response.
Absolutely.
We all have a role to play in addressing climate change, from individual actions to international cooperation.
Couldn't agree more.
And as we've been discussing this DNA storm, I've been struck by the parallel between the physical devastation and the political turmoil.
Yeah, it's almost like the storm has exposed existing vulnerabilities, not just in the infrastructure, but in the political system as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everything's connected.
Right.
And when you have this kind of event, it just sort of...
It brings it all to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, and it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths.
Absolutely. And in those moments of crisis, we have a chance to address those issues and build back stronger,
Right.
both physically and metaphorically.
Yeah. I mean, this disaster could be a catalyst for positive change.
It could.
Yeah.
It could lead to a reassessment of priorities, a strengthening of infrastructure,
Yeah.
a more unified approach to disaster preparedness.
We've discussed the physical damage and the economic impact.
Yeah.
But what about the emotional toll on the people who've been through this?
Right.
The trauma and the grief. I mean, it must be immense.
Absolutely. The psychological impact of a disaster like this is profound.
Yeah.
It's not just about providing immediate crisis counseling.
Right.
It's about creating long-term support systems to help individuals and communities process their trauma
Yeah.
and rebuild their lives.
It's about fostering resilience, not just on a societal level, but on a personal level, too.
Exactly. We need to equip individuals with the tools and resources they need to cope with the emotional aftermath of such a traumatic experience.
Well, we've explored the DNA storm and its multifaceted impact on Spain.
Yeah.
From the immediate devastation to the long-term implications.
Right.
It's been a deep dive into a really complex and challenging event.
It certainly has.
And while there are still many questions and challenges ahead, I'm optimistic that the lessons learned from this disaster will pave the way for a safer
Yeah, I agree.
and more resilient future.
I share your optimism, and while there's still many challenges ahead, I'm confident that we can learn from this experience and work towards a more resilient future.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
In the face of adversity, we have a choice to give in to despair or to rise to the challenge. And I hope we all choose the latter and work together to create a more resilient and compassionate world.
Beautifully said. And may we all draw strength and inspiration from the resilience of the Spanish people as they navigate this difficult time.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll be back soon to explore another compelling topic. Until then, stay curious and stay engaged.
And remember, knowledge is power, but it's the application of that knowledge that truly makes a difference. You're right, their involvement definitely highlights the gravity of the situation. According to the articles, they're mainly assisting with search and rescue in areas cut off by flooding and landslides.
Oh, wow.
These are places where helicopters are the only way in or out.
So they're getting people out of there.
Yeah, they're evacuating stranded residents, transporting them to safety.
Wow. It's incredible to think about the coordination involved in all of this. You got the military firefighters, police medical teams.
It's not just the coordination, it's the sheer physical and emotional toll on these rescuers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're wading through floodwaters, clearing debris, putting their own lives at risk to save others.
Yeah. It's heroic work.
It really is.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, you've got medical teams tending to the injured and psychologists offering support to those who have been traumatized by the experience. I can't even imagine what these families are going through.
The physical and emotional needs are immense, and thankfully, organizations like the Red Cross are setting up shelters
Okay.
for displaced residents, providing food, water, other necessities.
Yeah.
But what's really heartening is that local communities are also stepping up.
Oh, that's great.
People are opening their homes, donating supplies,
Yeah.
just offering any support they can.
That's amazing.
It's a powerful testament to human resilience and compassion, even in the darkest of times.
Yeah, it is good to see people coming together like that. But looking ahead, how do you think this disaster is going to impact the political landscape, especially for the Valencian government,
Yeah.
with the elections on the horizon?
It's a tightrope walk for them.
Yeah.
They're facing intense scrutiny, accusations of inadequate preparation,
Right.
particularly after that PP tweet about eliminating the emergency unit resurfaced.
Right.
It creates a perception of being ill-equipped to handle a disaster of this scale. So it's a significant political challenge for them.
Yeah.
They need to demonstrate decisive action,
Right.
acknowledge shortcomings, and outline steps to prevent future tragedies.
It's a delicate balance to strike.
Absolutely.
Yeah, addressing immediate needs while also planning for the future.
Right.
And speaking of the future, this disaster raises some critical questions about urban planning and development in the region.
Yeah.
Some of the hardest hit areas seem to be those built on floodplains or with poor drainage systems.
You've hit a crucial point. This tragedy exposes a lack of respect for nature's power.
Yeah.
We can't control nature. We need to work with it.
Right.
And that means investing in green infrastructure, things like restoring wetlands,
Okay.
which act as natural sponges, implementing stricter building codes that consider flood risks.
Yeah.
It seems like a fundamental shift in thinking is needed.
It does, moving away from concrete and asphalt
Absolutely.
towards a more sustainable approach.
And it extends beyond urban planning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we need to look at agricultural practices too.
Okay.
Intensive farming can worsen flooding by compacting soil and reducing its water absorption capacity.
So it's like everything's connected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how all these systems are interconnected.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a holistic approach, smarter urban planning, sustainable agriculture, and of course the political will to implement these changes.
Absolutely.
But shifting gears for a moment, I'm curious about the media's role in all of this.
Okay.
Have you noticed any particular themes or narratives emerging in the articles you've read?
One striking aspect is the focus on the human cost of this disaster.
Yeah.
The articles you share do a great job highlighting the personal stories of those impacted, giving a voice to the victims and their families.
Yeah.
It creates empathy and understanding,
Right.
which can hopefully lead to greater support for relief efforts and policy changes.
Yeah, it's so important to remember those individual stories amidst the larger statistics. It reminds us that behind every number is a life, a family, a community forever changed by this event.
Precisely. And while the human element is crucial,
Yeah.
there's also been a significant focus on the political fallout.
Of course.
The media is paying close attention to the criticism of the Valencian government's response,
Right.
particularly with that resurfaced PP tweet adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it seems like that tweet has become a symbol of the government's perceived missteps.
It has.
And it raises the bigger question of accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The media plays a vital role in facilitating those discussions and holding those in power accountable for their decisions.
Now, zooming out a bit, it's impossible to ignore the shadow of climate change looming over this disaster.
Right.
We're seeing more and more extreme weather events across the globe, and it makes me wonder, is this a sign of things to come?
There's no doubt that climate change is a contributing factor.
Yeah.
The scientific evidence is clear that a warming planet leads to more frequent and intense weather events.
Right.
This day-and-age storm might just be a glimpse into a future
Yeah.
where such events become increasingly common.
It's a sobering thought, but also a call to action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't afford to be complacent.
Yeah.
We need to adapt our infrastructure, our policies, our entire way of thinking to this new reality.
Right.
This event should serve as a wake-up call for us to take climate change seriously
Yeah.
and work towards mitigating its impact.
Speaking of impact, can you give us an update on the situation on the ground? What's the latest you've gathered from the articles?
Unfortunately, the death toll has continued to rise.
Oh, no.
The latest reports indicate at least 52 lives lost.
Oh, wow.
And that number is expected to increase as rescue workers reach more areas.
So they're still searching.
The rescue and relief efforts continue with thousands working tirelessly to save lives and provide aid.
It's a tragic situation, but it's inspiring to see the level of dedication and compassion from the first responders and aid organizations.
Their work is truly remarkable, and on the political front, tensions remain high. The Valencian government faces ongoing criticism,
Yeah.
and opposition parties are demanding a thorough investigation into their preparedness and response.
It sounds like there will be a lot of difficult conversations ahead,
There will
particularly about the region's infrastructure and emergency response systems.
This tragedy has exposed vulnerabilities that need to be addressed. It's a critical opportunity for reflection and action.
Beyond the human toll, I imagine the economic impact of this disaster is staggering.
You're right, the economic consequences are significant.
Yeah.
The agricultural sector has been hit especially hard with flooded farmland and destroyed crops.
Oh, wow.
This will have a ripple effect impacting food prices, employment, and overall economic activity.
It sounds like a long road to recovery lies ahead.
It will be a challenging journey, but I have faith in the resilience of the Spanish people.
Yeah.
They will rebuild and emerge from this stronger than before.
It's heartening to see the international community rallying around Spain, offering condolences and support. Have you noticed any significant contributions or expressions of support from other countries?
Yes, there's been a tremendous outpouring of solidarity. Several European Union member states have pledged financial aid and technical expertise for the recovery.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross and Doctors Without Borders have also mobilized teams to provide medical care, shelter, and essential services.
It's incredible how these organizations can respond so swiftly to disasters
It is.
and provide a lifeline to those in need.
Yeah,
I'm also wondering about the impact on Spain's tourism industry.
right.
Those images of devastation are bound to have a negative effect, at least in the short term. What are your thoughts on the longer-term outlook?
It's true that the tourism industry will likely face some setbacks initially,
Okay.
but I believe the long-term impact will be minimal. Spain is a resilient country.
Yeah,
With a strong tourism infrastructure, they'll bounce back.
that's reassuring to hear.
The Spanish government is committed to rebuilding and restoring tourism infrastructure. And let's not forget the enduring appeal of Spain itself.
Right.
Its rich history, vibrant culture, beautiful landscapes, delicious cuisine.
Yeah.
Those attractions will continue to draw visitors.
So it's not like Spain's going to just disappear off the map.
Absolutely not. It's a testament to the enduring spirit of Spain.
And speaking of spirit, it's remarkable how this disaster has also revealed the strength and resilience of the Spanish people.
Absolutely. Their ability to come together to support each other, to rebuild. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and humanity prevail.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, from the immediate devastation to the political fallout, the economic impact, and the long road to recovery ahead.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up part 2, is there anything else you think is crucial for our listener to understand about this event?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that this DNA storm, it's not an isolated incident.
Right.
It's a reminder, a stark reminder that we're seeing these extreme weather events more and more, and they're becoming more intense,
Right.
and climate change is driving that.
Yeah.
And we can't just wait until the next disaster happens.
Yeah. We got to be proactive.
We got to be proactive,
Random
mitigate the risks,
Right.
adapt to this new reality.
Yeah. It's a global issue. It
Absolutely.
requires a global response. We all have a role to play in this,
Mhm.
from, what we do in our own lives to international cooperation.
Couldn't agree more.
As we've been talking about this Deanna storm, I've been thinking about,
Yeah.
how it's not just the physical damage, it's like the political turmoil too.
Yeah, it's a great observation. It's like
Yeah.
the storm has exposed these vulnerabilities, not just in the physical infrastructure,
Right.
but also in the political system.
Yeah, and it's like that with everything.
It is.
It's like when you have this kind of event, it just brings everything to the surface.
It brings it all to
Yeah.
the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, and hopefully we can use those those moments of crisis to actually address the issues and build back stronger.
Absolutely. Both physically and metaphorically,
Mm-hmm.
this disaster could be a catalyst for positive change.
Yeah.
It could
Okay.
lead to a reassessment of priorities.
Yeah.
strengthening infrastructure,
Right.
a more unified approach to disaster preparedness.
We've talked about the physical damage, the economic impact.
Yeah.
What about the emotional toll on the people who've been through this?
Right.
The trauma, the grief, it must be immense.
You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
The psychological impact of a disaster like this is profound.
Yeah.
It's not just about providing that immediate crisis counseling.
Right.
It's about creating those long-term support systems
Mm-hmm.
to help people process their trauma, rebuild their lives.
It's about fostering resilience,
Mhm.
not just as a society, but on a personal level, too.
Exactly. We need to give people the tools and resources they need to cope
Yeah.
with the emotional aftermath of a traumatic experience like this.
Well, we've explored the Day storm and its impact on Spain,
Yeah.
from the immediate devastation to the long-term implications,
Right.
It's been a deep dive into a really complex and challenging event.
It certainly has. And while there are still many questions and challenges ahead, I'm optimistic that the lessons learned from this disaster will pave the way for a safer and more resilient future.
I agree with you. I'm optimistic, too. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Yeah.
In the face of adversity,
Mhm.
we have a choice to give in to despair or to rise to the challenge.
Absolutely.
And I hope we all choose the latter, work together to create a more resilient and compassionate world.
Beautifully said. And may we all draw strength and inspiration from the resilience of the Spanish people as they navigate this difficult time.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore another compelling topic. Until then, stay curious and stay engaged.
And remember, knowledge is power, but it's the application of that knowledge that truly makes a difference.